Our story today is called Put One Foot in Front of the Other. Please listen. At the end, I will ask you some questions. Feel free to listen as many times as you'd like.
Now One Foot, Now the Other, by Tommy DePaola. Bobby was named after his best friend, his grandfather, Bob. When Bobby was just a baby, his grandfather told everyone, "Bobby will be 3 years old before he can say Grandpa, so I'm going to have him call me Bob." And Bob was the first word Bobby said. Bob was the one who helped Bobby learn to walk. "Hold on to my hands, Bobby," his grandfather said. "Now one foot, now the other." One of the best things Bob and Bobby did was to play with the old wooden blocks that were kept on a shelf in the small sewing room under the front stairs. The blocks had letters on 2 sides, numbers on 2 sides, and pictures of animals and other things on the last 2 sides. Bob and Bobby would slowly, very slowly, put the blocks one on top of the other, building a tall tower. There were 30 blocks. Sometimes the tower would fall down when only half the blocks were piled up. Sometimes the tower would be almost finished. "Just one more block," Bob would say. "And that's the elephant block," Bobby would say. And they would carefully put the elephant block on the very top. But Bob would sneeze, and the tower would fall down. Bobby would laugh and laugh. "Elephants always make you sneeze, Bob," Bobby would say. "We'll just have to try the next time," his grandfather would say. Then Bob would sit Bobby on his knee and tell him stories. "Bob, tell me the story about how you taught me to walk," Bobby would say. And his grandfather would tell Bobby how he held Bobby's hands and said, "Now one foot, now the other." And before you knew it... On Bobby's 5th birthday, Bob and he had a special day. They went to the amusement park. They rode a roller coaster, ate hot dogs and ice cream. They had their pictures taken in a machine, and they sang a song and made a phonograph record. And when it got dark, they watched the fireworks. On the way home, Bob told Bobby stories. "Now tell me the story about how you taught me to walk," Bobby said. And Bob did. Not long after Bobby's birthday, his grandfather got very sick. Bobby came home, and his grandfather wasn't there. "Bob is in the hospital," Dad told Bobby. "He's had what is called a stroke." "I want to go see him," Bobby said. "You can't, honey," Mom told him. "Right now Bob's too sick to see anyone. He can't move his arms and legs, and he can't talk. The doctor's not sure if he knows who anyone is. We'll just have to wait and hope Bob gets better." Bobby didn't know what to do. He didn't want to eat. He had a hard time going to sleep at night. Bob just had to get better. Months and months and months went by. Bob was still in the hospital. Bobby missed his grandfather. One day, when Bobby came home from school, his father told him that Bob was coming home. "Now, Bobby," Dad said, "Bob is still very sick. He can't move or talk. When he sees your mother and me, he still doesn't know who we are, and the doctor doesn't think he'll get any better. So don't be scared if he doesn't remember you." But Bobby was scared. His grandfather didn't remember him. He just lay in bed, and when Dad carried him, Bob sat in a chair, but he didn't talk or even move. One day, Bob tried to say something to Bobby, but the sound that came out was awful. Bobby ran out of the room. "Bob sounded like a monster," Bobby cried. "He can't help it, Bobby," Mom said. So Bobby went back to the room where Bob was sitting. It looked like a tear was coming down Bob's face. "I didn't mean to run away, Bob. I was scared." "I'm sorry," Bobby said. "Do you know who I am?" Bobby thought he saw Bob blink his eye. "Mom! Mom!" Bobby called. "Bob knows who I am." "Oh, Bobby," Mom said, "you're just going to upset yourself. Your grandfather doesn't recognize any of us." But Bobby knew better. He ran to the small sewing room under the front stairs. He took the blocks off the shelf and ran back to where Bob was sitting. Bob's mouth made a small smile. Bobby began to build the tower. Halfway, almost to the top, only one block left. "Okay, Bob," said Bobby. "Now the elephant block." And Bob made a strange noise that sounded like a sneeze. The blocks fell down, and Bob smiled and moved his fingers up and down. Bobby laughed and laughed. Now he knew that Bob would get better. And Bob did. Slowly, he began to talk a little. It sounded strange, but he could say Bobby just as clear as day. Bob began to move his fingers and then his hands. Bobby still helped to feed his grandfather, but one day Bob could almost hold a spoon by himself. But he still couldn't walk. When the weather got nice and warm, Dad carried Bob out to a chair set up on the lawn. Bobby sat with him. "Bobby," Bob said, "story." So Bobby told Bob some stories. Then Bob stood up very slowly. "You, me, walk," said Bob. Bobby knew exactly what Bob wanted to do. Bobby stood in front of Bob and let Bob lean on his shoulders. "Okay, Bob. Now one foot." Bob moved one foot. "Now the other foot." Bob moved the other. By the end of the summer, Bob and Bobby could walk to the end of the lawn, and Bob could talk better and better each day. On Bobby's 6th birthday, Bobby got the blocks. Slowly he built up the tower. Only one block to go. "Here, elephant block," Bob said. Bobby put it on top. Bob sneezed. "Elephants always make you sneeze, Bob," Bobby said. "We'll just have to try the next time. Now tell me some stories." Bob did. Then Bob said, "Bobby, tell story how you teach Bob to walk." "Well, Bob, you leaned on my shoulders, and then I said, 'Now one foot, now the other.' And before you knew it..."
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that story. I'm now going to ask 10 questions about the story. Please write your answers in your notebook. The answers will be either yes or no. First, I will ask the question and give you 10 seconds to answer. Then, the question will appear on the screen. Number 1. Was Bobby named after his grandfather? Number 2. Did Bob like to play with Bobby? Number 3. Did elephants really make Bob sneeze? Did Bobby especially like the story about how he had learned to walk? Number 5. Did Bobby visit Bob in the hospital? Number 6. Was Bobby worried about Bob's being sick? When Bob first came home from the hospital, was Bobby happy to play with him again? Number 8. Did Bobby help Bob learn to talk again? Number 9. Did Bob and Bobby almost trade places in the story? Number 10. Number 10. By the end of the story, were things getting better for Bob and Bobby? Okay. If you've got all your answers, let's go ahead and check. Okay, our next activity today, we're going to look at some American TV commercials and the advertising techniques that they use to make them. Enjoy! Advertising is a very big business. Many professionals spend their whole careers finding ways to convince you to buy their products. Having an understanding of the techniques advertisers use to sell you allows you to be a more rational, empowered consumer. Today, we're going to look at 6 of the tricks advertisers use to persuade you. We will see how these techniques work in real American TV commercials. One of the simplest advertising techniques is repetition. Here, the advertiser repeats the name of the product again and again until it sticks in your brain. This technique is fairly common in Japan. Maybe you've heard biku 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 camera or ponta 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 ponta. Next, we have the endorsement. In this kind of advertising, a famous person says that he recommends or uses this product. Celebrities make a lot of money from this kind of advertising. In bandwagon advertising, the advertiser tries to convince you that everyone is using a particular product. If everyone is doing it, you don't want to be left out, right? You see, this advertising a lot for social network software. Everybody is using Facebook. No, everybody is using Snapchat. No, everybody is using TikTok. Come on, everybody, jump on the bandwagon. FOMO, right? That's fear of missing out. Emotional appeal advertising tries to make you feel something. Ever notice how many handsome men and beautiful women appear in TV commercials? They're trying to get you to feel attracted to them. Any kind of emotional appeal can be used: masculinity, motherhood, love, romance, sex. All are used to create an emotion in the viewer. Emotional appeal advertising isn't always based on positive emotions. Many commercials try to make the viewer feel fear, anxiety, discomfort, worry. Personal care products often use this technique. Does my breath smell bad? Do I have body odor? Does my hair look unattractive? Humor is probably the most common kind of emotional appeal advertising. If a commercial can make you laugh, you are likely to have a positive feeling for the product being advertised. There are many more advertising techniques, but for this lesson, we'll examine these 6. I'm going to show you 5 American TV commercials. First, I'll stop the commercial before the product is revealed and ask you to guess what the product is. Then, I'll play the full commercial and ask you to decide which advertising technique is being used. Sometimes, one commercial will use more than one technique.
They are the sheep, and we are the shepherds. We tell them that college is the doorway. We tell them to prepare for the future. But the question remains, will we? They are the sheep, and we are the shepherds. We tell them that college is the doorway. We tell them to prepare for the future. But the question remains, will we?
It's a big day for our 50-year-old tractor. All dolled up and ready for the newest Pennzoil, the one with GF2. We didn't have to achieve the tougher GF2 motor oil performance standard ahead of its time, but we did. Because when you take pride in what you do, you always do more. With the new look outside and the newest Pennzoil inside, this old tractor and I are ready for another 50 years. It's a big day for our 50-year-old tractor. All dolled up and ready for the newest Pennzoil, the one with GF2. We didn't have to achieve the tougher GF2 motor oil performance standard ahead of its time, but we did. Because when you take pride in what you do, you always do more. With the new look outside and the newest Pennzoil inside, this old tractor and I are ready for another 50 years.
Pennzoil, a broadcast sponsor of NBC's coverage of the 1996 Olympics.
Night, night. Good afternoon.
For the latest news in the afternoon, get the paper that's printed afternoon. From the next generation at the San Francisco Examiner.
For years, I dreamed of seeing Venice with my boyfriend, Tom. I'd whisper about palazzo, gondolas. All he'd talk about is deadlines and business meetings. Finally, I went and booked 2 romantic weeks on the Grand Canal with my Visa Gold card. Tom was completely surprised. For years, I dreamed of seeing Venice with my boyfriend, Tom. I'd whisper about palazzo, gondolas. All he'd talk about is deadlines and business meetings. Finally, I went and booked 2 romantic weeks on the Grand Canal with my Visa Gold card. Tom was completely surprised.
Scusa, ma chi è questo Tom? Visa Gold, purchase power to make dreams come true. It's everywhere you want to be.
Okay, that is the end of our program for today. Make sure you come back next Friday for week 3 of Hiatus Lesson Red Level. Have a good one. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.